In this video, I want to talk a little bit about Atlas Fallen, the new action RPG that's being developed by Deck 13. We actually got to see this game at Gamescom, have a bit of a presentation with the development team, and then ask a bunch of questions after that presentation. I asked a ton of questions, by the way, and I kind of just want to run you through what I've learned from the game or about the game during that presentation and from these questions so you guys can get a better understanding of how this game plays. First up, let me just say this game looks absolutely stunning graphically. The environments, the landscapes, the visual appearance of the game is absolutely mind-blowingly good. This is something I've come to expect from Deck 13 throughout the time that I've known them and worked with them. Lords of the Fallen, when it came out on PlayStation 4, was absolutely gorgeous. One of the best-looking games on that system when it was first released. And the Surge as well has very, very good quality of graphics. I didn't particularly like the setting of the Surge, but the graphical quality of the game was absolutely fantastic. So I think this is something from what I've seen so far you'll be able to expect in Atlas Fallen as well. I'm glad to see the shift back to a fantasy sort of game from the sci-fi. I wasn't a huge fan of the sort of sci-fi they chose for the Surge. I would have rather seen something like Mass Effect or that type of sci-fi like The Expanse, rather than this sort of post-apocalyptic world sci-fi they've done, kind of like Fallout or somewhere in the middle between Fallout and sci-fi. So I'm glad they've returned to the fantasy elements. And this is a big sand world, sort of, that's been destroyed by the sun god. And effectively, your goal in this game is to try and get strong enough to challenge the Watcher, which is effectively the embodiment of that sun god, and overthrow him. We do know that there are going to be 3 different weapons in the game. I believe these are hammer, axe, and sword. And you can only have 2 of them equipped at a given time. And as you attack enemies, you have what's called a momentum bar that fills up with each hit you do to enemies, unlocking new moves, and you get stronger and stronger combos and attacks as you lay into enemies with these weapons. So it's not going to have, as far as I can tell, a traditional loot system in the sense of like finding all these different weapon types like there was in Lords of the Fallen or the Surge, but instead you're going to focus on combat with these 3 different weapon types, kind of like what it seems like to me God of War, how you have different weapons and you're kind of making those weapons stronger. You're using those weapons the whole game, but you're unlocking new moves and combos and, potentially other upgrades for those weapons. But there isn't going to be like, 10 different weapon types or something like that. You're going to be focusing on those 3 different weapons, of which you'll have 2 equipped at a given time. Something that struck me as particularly interesting about watching the gameplay, you only see a little bit in the trailer, but the presentation we saw, we got to see quite a bit more, is the combat is extremely fast-paced, way faster than any of the other games we've seen Deck 13 make. Lords of the Fallen was kind of slow, and the Surge was a little bit faster. This looks even faster and more action-y based than those games. Something that really caught my attention was the fact that when you hit an enemy while you're airborne, you reset your jump counter. So theoretically, you could stay in the air an entire fight and never touch the ground. And I'm assuming that based on the way other games have gone for Deck 13, that there's probably challenges for bosses. Probably one of them will have, a fight where you need to defeat the boss without ever touching the ground. And because you can do that in this game, that is definitely something I look forward to. Moving away from the combat and jumping into the exploration, we do know that the game has 5 major regions to explore, and they're going to look different in terms of their biomes. I think sand is going to be a main theme throughout the game, but I don't think every biome is going to be sand. I think you will see green areas and stuff. So if you're worried about the whole game looking sandy, I don't think it's going to be the whole game, but I do think it's going to be a big chunk of it. And we know that the game is semi-open world. My understanding, I think, is that you'll probably have access to 1 or 2 biomes at a time, and you'll be able to go and do whatever you want inside those biomes. As you can see from the trailer, these look wide open. They're like very much wide open compared to the Surge, where you only could go like 1 or 2 ways and it was very linear. I think this is going to be more wide open, kind of the way Elden Ring is wide open in a given area that you can kind of go in any direction. I don't think it'll be quite as open world as Elden Ring, but it will have more open world feel to it than in previous Deck 13 games. We also know, too, that there are going to be sort of Metroidvania elements to the game. You're going to get upgrades to your gauntlet, which help you explore the world by allowing you to glide or raise structures out of the ground. So as you progress through the game and you gain more tools, you're going to be able to interact with things that you couldn't before. Deck 13 is notorious for this in their games. They do a really good job of creating things inside their game and making you come back and explore through them again and find stuff that you couldn't get at the beginning, giving it that Metroidvania feel that I think a lot of people like. So you can expect those elements in this game as well. So the primary focus of these areas is going to be destroying statues of the sun god, trying to weaken his influence in the area, trying to get stronger, gaining experience, leveling up your weapons, and, talking to various NPCs in these areas. The quests in this game, I imagine, are going to be somewhat similar to Deck 13's previous games. They're not going to be a huge focal point of the game, but they'll just be like some things you can do to gain equipment or items, etc. They're not going to be like, it's not a very heavily, dialogue heavy game like some RPGs are. So I think you can expect similar types of NPC interactions that you have had in previous Deck 13 games. We do know that the game is going to have 3 difficulty modes: adventure, normal, and hard. So for those of you who want more of an exploration type experience, you're going to be able to get that. And for those of you that are like Souls-like fans or action RPG fans that like that hardcore experience, you're going to be able to play on hard and still get that. So I think there's a little wiggle room there for everyone. We do know that the main storyline, if you just rush it, is about 20 hours. And then if you do all the side questing and, explore every area thoroughly, it's about 40 hours of gameplay. And lastly, the thing that has me most excited about this game, besides the fact that they've gone back to their fantasy roots, is the cooperable nature of the game. You can play co-op from the very beginning of the game all the way through with no interruptions, no summoning or no mission summoning like Neo, or, no Souls-like summoning. You just play, and you can play together all the way through the whole game, which is awesome. Something that, people have been asking from Deck 13 with the Surge is to get a co-op experience. And now we finally have a co-op experience in a game, and it's more open world in nature, which I think will lend itself a lot better to the co-op experience. So I can't wait to play that. There's not too many co-op action adventure RPGs these days. And the ones that are there typically have restrictions, and it's really nice to see one that just going to let you play together from the very beginning. So I can't wait for that. That looks really good. One thing that I want to mention too is this game is going to be available on PC and the next generation of consoles, Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. I cannot find anywhere that this is coming to last gen. I've dug everywhere. As far as I know, this is a next generation console game only. It makes sense to me, given that Deck 13 focuses very heavily on the graphical quality of their game, that they would only want to develop for these platforms. So we'll have to see. It's possible it might come to these platforms later on, but at the moment it seems that this is only a next-gen title. We also know that the game is coming out sometime next year. There is no official release date as of yet, but next year is not that far away, and I can't wait to see more of this game. When we have some more gameplay to show you guys, I can't wait for you to see it. We got to see quite a bit more than that was shown in the trailers here, and I definitely think you're going to like what you see, particularly in the combat department. So I can't wait for that. So what do you guys think about this game? Is it something you're looking forward to? Are you happy Deck 13 went back to fantasy compared to the sci-fi? Do you wish it was different? What is it that you like about it? What don't you like about what you've seen so far? Let us know in the comments below.